A very good afternoon to our attendees who are here with us online today. My name is Jasiri, and I am from SGTech Industry Outreach Program team that we look after the internationalization activities. A warm welcome to our Go International webinar series, and today's topic is on high growth potential for Vietnam ICT sector. Vietnam internet economy is expected to grow from USD 13 billion in 2019 to USD 43 billion in 2024, where more consumers are increasingly going online and demanding for more digital content, e-commerce, and mobile banking services. Many private companies and public sector are also investing in digitalization, presenting opportunities for technology solution providers in areas such as banking and financial, telecommunications, healthcare, and government services. Opportunities are also driven by smart cities projects in Hanoi, Chi Minh City, and Danang, involving application of data analytics, artificial intelligence, IoT, 5G, and blockchain solutions. Driving Vietnam's dynamic innovation ecosystem is the country's young and educated population. With a median age of just 30, the country's population offers a large pool of low-cost, high-tech talent. For today's program, we are honored to have speakers from Orisa International, Tech JDI, and NASDAQ. We will cover the opportunities in the Vietnam ICT sector for Singapore companies. There will also be insights and strategies for building remote tech teams and learning and experience sharing from IT practitioners in Vietnam. Before we start the event proper, allow us to share some functions of this webinar. The webinar slides will be uploaded to SGTech website after the session. We are also making a recording of this webinar, which will be available on our YouTube channel one day after the event. If you have any questions at any point of time, you may use the Q&A function in Zoom and post in your questions. This helps us to indicate your name and company name when submitting questions. We will answer to them during the combined Q&A segment after all the presentations have concluded. Our first speaker is Ms. Thao Pham, Country Manager of Orisa International, Vietnam, where she will be sharing with us the opportunities in the ICT sector and market entry options into Vietnam. For over 20 years, Orisa International has been working with thousands of companies in developing their market entry strategy, identifying and arranging meetings with potential customers and distributors, and developing lead generation programs for these companies to further grow their businesses. This wealth of experience has led to Orisa International being appointed as a market entry consultant for 15 export promotion agencies from around the world. Here in Singapore, Orisa International has been approved by Enterprise Singapore as an in-market and business matching consultant for some of the Southeast Asian markets such as Malaysia, Indonesia, Thailand, Vietnam, and the Philippines. Now, let us welcome Thao to share her presentation. Thao?
Okay, thanks, Jasiri, for your very kind introduction, and I would like to thank SGTech too for creating the opportunity for us today to speak with everyone. So as Jasiri has just mentioned, I will just go through it quickly as maybe most of you already joined the webinar about Philippines before. Orisa is a market entry consulting firm. So in Vietnam, the office has been here for 10 years. Our main service is all about finding local distributors, local partners, as well as help you understand the market landscape of Vietnam, as well as other countries in Southeast Asia. We also help with incorporations and corporation advisory via our partners. So here is the map of our office in Vietnam. We are located in Ho Chi Minh City, down in the south of Vietnam, but of course, all of our project is cover a whole country. This is just a part of our government clients who referred their companies to us, including Enterprise Singapore. And individual companies come from various sectors. Here's a couple of the name in ICT sector particularly. Some of them as service provider, some of them as software provider, as well as hardware suppliers. These are the projects that we used to have in Vietnam as well as other offices in Southeast Asia. Okay, so now let's go to the main content today. First of all, about the overview of the ICT sector in Vietnam. If you compare the rank of ICT market in Vietnam in a global scale, Vietnam is still at a very low rank. If I'm not wrong, it's around 108 rank compared to other countries, even lower than Philippines or Indonesia. But the growth rate is growing quite good. Sorry guys, I think there's something problems here. I need to go back. Okay, so the government is trying the best to improve the infrastructure of the internet in Vietnam. That's a result out of that. Now in Vietnam, we have 100% national coverage of internet. Generally, internet users in Vietnam also enjoy better mobile subscription as well as better international bandwidth compared to other countries in Asia Pacific. The next development phase from the government is actually they want to focus on the data center development to serve the digital economies. But actually the digital economies itself is also growing. It comprises of e-commerce, online media, online advertising, or traveling or ride hailing is already growing at 38% during 50 to 18 period. It's already growing by the foreign players. So this is the size and the structure of the industries in Vietnam. As you can see, it posted an upward trend of the revenue. The growth rate is positive since 2009. The reason for the big fluctuations over here is that if you look at the structure of the country, the biggest revenue is still falling to the hardware. So it accounts for most of the percentage of the revenue, while software services and digital content is still account for a low share. So the thing is that if there is any small drops in hardware, it will drop the growth rate down. But in general, the revenue is still going up. So one thing I want to mention is that the value of the industry, ICT industries in Vietnam is actually at the exports. So talking about hardware, you may already heard that many foreign manufacturers is coming to Vietnam. We are now exporting mobile phones, accessories, as well as computer and components, electronic components, a lot of them. And many big name like Apple or Intel, Samsung is having their operations over here. So a lot of percentage of the revenue is for export sector. So for software is also most of our turnover is for export. And what do we export? Actually in Vietnam, we are specialized in outsourcing program development. So we receive the orders from other countries, and then we design the software, the program according to order. And the main market for this sector is actually the US, North America, as well as Japan market. Okay, now let's go to each sectors. I'll just mention the technologies apply in these key sectors of Vietnam. First of all, about retail. So everyone can imagine that in the Vietnam internet economy, there's a boom in e-commerce. It accounts for the largest percentage of revenue, as well as posted the highest growth. And here are some famous platforms, Shopee and Lazada. You must be very familiar with it. We also have Tiki, which is a local company, but recently it has been invested a lot by foreign companies as well. For example, JD.com from China, and it's also gained like a good percentage of preference from the consumers. And here I want to mention that the type of device that most of the people are using in Vietnam, especially smartphones and mobile phones, is also explained that why there is a lot of mobile development companies in Vietnam for more than other devices, because people enjoy to use everything, to access to everything via their smartphone devices. Speaking about the online travel and media and stuff in this area, is really dominated by foreign players. So there's no local players in this sector yet. Most of them, all of them are foreign. So online travel, we have Traveloka, we have Skyscanner, and many more like that, very familiar names. For online media, it's all about Facebook, YouTube, Google, and actually social networking sites is being used a lot, and a lot of enterprises are seeing that using social network sites to advertise their company is actually much more effective than the traditional one, and more companies switching to use social networking as their online advertising tools. We go to the public organization. The government has a high ambitions over here. They said that they want all of the organizations by 2025 to go digital. So what have they achieved in 2020 already? Most of the government is still at level 1 and 2, which means that they will be able to present the regulations online, the administration procedures online, as well as the standard form, the updated regulation where everyone can go online and search for it without going to the agency to ask in person. Most of the government can do that. The next level is where they can submit and ask for the approval from the government online, as well as making the payment online. Not a lot of the organizations in Vietnam can do that at the moment, but via a report recently, they said that 99% of the business already using the public online platform. So what they use it for, there's a report say that most of the enterprises will focus on the e-tax disclosure, because it's the procedures that require a lot of paperwork, and then there's a lot of adding more and more. So the e-tax disclosure is being prioritized to add more and more technologies over here, so that it will reduce the time and the effort of people to come and apply for it. So the next one that they want to focus is the customs. Customs is already, because Vietnam is more engaged in global chain, so the custom procedure has to be simplified as well. And this is the factor that the government wants to invest more to gain more technology to improve the procedures online over here. About the technology that being applied in the private organization. So for these sectors, I only mentioned about software. The software that are being used in the private organizations mostly is about HR and finance or accounting. So this is the core software. Almost every business will have this. For ERP system, for supply chain management system or CRM, the utilizations by the local is pretty low compared to advanced country. So there's a report we found that said around the utilization is only around 25 to 40% of the average of those countries in Europe. The main reason I think is because right now when we met with the local companies, they still feel that the applications of such technology, although nice but very expensive, they only want to go with the big names like SAP or Oracle, but the cost is around 40 million USD to 21 million USD, which is so much. It's like 7,000 times higher than the national GDP. So not a lot of local company will be willing to use it, but big companies, financial institutes find the use of it, and they are applying it more and more. As well as there's also MNC in Vietnam, they are coming in, so they also try to adopt the technologies because they already know the effectiveness of it. And one thing I should mention is that the big data analysis, business intelligence is still account for even a lower share of the market, but there's one thing about that is that their growth rate is growing pretty fast. More and more people are especially the financial status, the commercial bank, they're really interested in this technology, and they are willing to find more suppliers to enhance their knowledge and productivity for their business. One thing I want to mention is that smart city, so for smart city, is really all about the government. The application used the most here is normally the IoT. It's about sensors and data analysis that help to improve the situations or detect the problem early. The government aimed that by 2020, Vietnam should already have 3 smart cities, the one in Hanoi, one in Ho Chi Minh City, the 2 biggest commercial cities in Vietnam, as well as Danang and Bình Dương. Bình Dương here is the industrial cities, emerging industrial city that attracts a lot of investment. And we have some Singapore, Vietnam industrial zones over here. But the thing is that because Vietnam is still new to technology, so many of the key factors is not yet fully implemented yet. So far, only Bình Dương is recognized as a smart city. And many factors like cashless environment or sensors to predict the trouble in the city is not implemented yet. And there's still call for more knowledge and technologies to be advised to the government. One thing I should mention over here is that who is the partner with the government? Who is the most common partner with the government? It's Japan company. Actually, Japan is considered one of the most active investors in Vietnam in terms of infrastructure, and smart city and ICT infrastructure is not different. Most of the project is being deployed by companies in Vietnam as well as the partner in Japan, mostly because the ODA invested to Vietnam a lot from Japan. So for manufacturing, Vietnam has become more active in the global news because of manufacturing. People are thinking that maybe Vietnam will become a place to replace China, and there are more and more foreign manufacturers trying to come into Vietnam. So what kind of technology is being deployed over here? First of all, it's still the basic one, the finance and the accounting, but there are more than that. So these are the 4 core technologies that being applied in manufacturing. And normally these are in a survey, these are the preferred technologies. So they are usually big data and cloud-based service. But I should mention to you that most of the big manufacturers in Vietnam are MNC. They're from Korea, from Japan, even from the USA. So they already have the knowledge or maybe have the system. It's just that how we can cooperate it with this company. There's an example, I'll show you some example. There's a cooperations between Samsung and CMC. So CMC is the 2nd largest ICT companies in Vietnam. And together they partner to implement a system for smart city, for smart industrial manufacturing. And they plan to apply this kind of system for over 200 suppliers of Samsung in Vietnam. So they already have quite a big amount of clients. A second example is that there's cooperations between Toshiba, a Japanese company, and FPT, also a very big ICT companies in Vietnam. They also want to implement kind of a system that promotes the smart manufacturing factory, and they aim to implement that kind of system on a global scale to other factories, not only in Vietnam, but for other countries as well. So besides FPT and CMC, here I list some of the big names in the market that you should look at when you start to talk about Vietnam. Actually, if you want to work with the big companies or the government, going through these guys create you an easier way to work with the government rather than go directly to the government yourself. I suggest some of the big names like VNPT, Viettel, or Mobile Phone, although that they are a telco, but they're really in charge of the infrastructure, the ICT infrastructure. And they have a big branch of implement system integrator as well as implement software for the country. So these are the names that I would recommend out of other service companies. Okay, so in general, what kind of the emerging technologies that we think are being deployed in Vietnam? The first graph is actually the preferred technology from MNC. So you see that the big data analytics they be used a lot. But for smaller companies, for smaller local companies, what kind of technology is being used? I can say that cloud computing is being deployed very much in Vietnam. It's small, but it has a quite high growth rate, over 50% annually since 2015 already. And the market value of cloud-based cloud technology in Vietnam is expected around 300 millions by 2024. So yeah, this part is being applied to most of the small business in Vietnam because of these features, the advantage that it brings as a tech enabler to the companies, for example, video streaming, or if they want to do anything like backup or data analysis, cloud is being deployed in Vietnam a lot. I should mention that infrastructure as a service is dominating in Vietnam cloud markets. The software service is expected to grow fast in the fastest of all of the cloud technology. Another thing I should mention here is the application of AI companies. This is a new concept. Many companies still think that it is a nice to have tech, but it's not a core one. But because of the booming of the e-commerce and now, as e-commerce is also about the cross-border trade, and it's also about the import and export. There are more and more application of AI in these two sectors, e-commerce and transportation and logistics. In Vietnam, there's not a lot of startup companies who focus on that, so there's not a lot of investors as well. But big companies like the big players that I mentioned earlier, they are the one, they do have the team to apply to develop applications of AI. So they are the big players to be worked with when you come to Vietnam. If we talk about the opportunities and the challenges, besides the bureaucracy, the red tape in working with the government, I would say that you may think of the challenges is the opportunities. So for example, cyber security. Vietnam is actually the third largest home for botnet after India and China. Many 60 million computers were infected with malicious codes in 2019. It's quite a serious problem that everyone wants to focus in, especially when even the government, the private organizations, the companies are trying to go digitalized. They have to be more aware of the security. Another thing is the skill storage. So Vietnam is an emerging developing country. So we are not really have a lot of knowledge about new technology. A lot of things have been introduced to Vietnam, but not many people be aware of. That's why the government is investing more and more money into the education to bridge the skill gaps. And this is where the edtech and the skill development is really being needed in the market of Vietnam. So here, the next slides, I want to walk you through some of the case studies that we used to have with the companies in Vietnam. So first of all, I want to mention that, have you ever questions that your product is really for the market? Means the market is, are they ready for your products yet? If they are not, then you need to find a way to alter your offer, or trying to educate your customers in Vietnam. And the education takes quite a lot of time, so I would recommend that you should try to think of a way to alter your offering. It's not like you are selling to a Singaporean clients, but clients in Vietnam is really, really different. And the second thing I want to mention is that, are you partnering with the right partners? Because if you are not bringing any value to your partners, then they don't push yourself. If you don't see that there's any sales going up, then you should question that what kind of benefits you are bringing to your partner. If you don't, then you might probably thinking of finding another partner that can push yourself because you're bringing more value to them. So I just want to say that, like, if you don't want to work with a partner and you want to have a license in Vietnam, there's a lot more difficulty recently. Due to the COVID, there is travel restriction, but without the COVID, you will see that the partners in Vietnam have become more selective. There are higher competition, so how can you commit with anything in Vietnam, but without knowing it? So actually, we have a program that piloting with ESG Enterprise Singapore, and this program is funded by under EDG grant as well. You can ask for more information at the end of this presentation via my emails. So in this program, you will have a customized market study where you can understand the market, a database that your people can tap on, a dedicated salesperson, a local person that helps you to sell your product and work with a distributor, and in-country support so that you don't have to worry about remoting control your team. The benefits of this program that we work with Enterprise Singapore is that it addresses the key issue of when you set up an actual office in Vietnam, but you don't really know or don't really have any clients here. And it addresses the high cost of registering a company or renting office space. It's also helped you to avoid the difficulty in hiring locally or deal with the government. It can take a lot of time and efforts for doing so. So this program will help you to avoid those mistakes. And finally, I just want to say that some tips working with local companies in Vietnam, that first of all about the market acceptance, as I mentioned before, is your products are the thing that the market is needed right now. And if you think that if you think that you want to sell right away, then you need to alter the way that you offer to them. Or if you really want to sell the original one, then you have to think about long-term education of the customers. The second thing I want to mention is about the business culture. So Vietnam speaks a totally different language, and not a lot of us can speak language fluently. So FaceTime and then regular visit face-to-face, casual talks, making friends is more important than a very well scripted emails with a very well structured sentence. It's actually caused the local companies in Vietnam the hesitations to work with Singaporean companies. So try to be friends with them. And I think it's even better if you have, if you just come to Vietnam, prepare an interpreter with you. So it will make your local partner become more comfortable working with you rather than just like throwing in emails and waiting for the answer. So I think this is the end of my presentations. It captured again how we can help companies to enter Vietnam. I shall pass my presentation to the next speaker. And if you have any question, I will try to answer at the end of this presentation. Thank you guys for listening to me.
Yeah, thank you, Tao, for the insightful sharing. Just let me pull out my slide again. Yeah. So next up, right, we have Mr. Frank Lee, Managing Director at Tech JDI, where he will be presenting on the insights and strategies to building remote tech teams in Vietnam. So Frank has over 14 years of experience, with the first 6 years in software engineering roles before transiting to 6-stage venture capital investment, portfolio management, and venture support services. Frank founded Tech JDI in 2016, a venture support services firm based between Singapore and Vietnam. Tech JDI first focused on helping fast-scaling Series A, B, and C tech companies scale their second tech teams in Ho Chi Minh City. It has since diversified into other services, including MVP development, market expansion, and financial advisory. Tech JDI has over 100 headcount in 3 offices across 2 cities in Vietnam. Frank is also a partner at PNF Ventures, where he manages all aspects of investment operations and portfolio companies. He has a good network and understanding of the tech startup ecosystem and fund environment in Singapore and Southeast Asia. Frank, over to you.
Thank you, Zadari. I share my screen. Okay, everybody, hope you can see my screen.
Yes, can.
Yeah. We're about so this topic today we're talking about establishing and managing local teams in Vietnam. So we have been helping a lot of Series A and B companies do their team in Vietnam. Currently, over there, we first started on the human resource because that has always been the biggest problem in Singapore side. They cannot find tech talents in Singapore. That was the first angle we go inside there. We help people set up their teams. We engage freelancers to support them. Then we move on to help companies incorporate their company, do BD, and also fundraising services. Right. So some of the companies we have helped over are in this list. I will not go through them now. I think the topic today is more about how can Singapore companies, tech companies, go into Vietnam to set up their own teams, etc. So today I'm going to talk about the different operational models, whether it's good to outsource, whether you want to hire freelancers, whether you want to go and set up your own offshore team, through a service partner, or you want to do it by yourself into the Vietnam market. It all depends on the different stage that your company is going in. So if today my topic is going to be more focused towards startups at different stages, not so much on SME and corporates itself. Yeah. So we also talk about how the team structure can be like how when you're having 1 to 3%, that's different from 5 to 10%, and etc. We're going to talk about that. We're also going to talk about budgeting for the salaries, etc. And we're going to do some comparison between Vietnam and Singapore in terms of salaries, and also about how the success factors, what the success factors are if you are going to be trying to grow a team over there. Okay, so in terms of operational models, there's outsourced, freelance, offshore, through a provider, and via yourself. We have been working with a lot of clients. We find that basically, if you are at the early stage of angel and seed stage, where you are still developing an MVP, it makes sense to just outsource it to a dev house, whether it be in India, be it in Vietnam, etc. So this is a good way to do it. It's short-term cost effective because you can jump straight into your MVP development without going through all the HR issues of setting up your team, getting your office up and running and such, right? But of course, when you outsource, a lot of time at the early stage, you are looking for the cheapest quote, which may not be the right way of doing things, because when you do that, they'll try to make things as efficient as possible, which also means that it may not be extendable. So a lot of time, if you don't have the internal tech person to look over this, yeah, you need to be prepared to fight over the timeline and scope changes later on as you develop your system. So other than outsourcing over the whole project over to the outsourcing house, you can also try to engage freelancers. And basically these freelancers will sort of like a report to your tech guy. So the precursor of engaging freelancers is that you need to have somebody strong on the tech side within your internal team so that they can manage the freelancers' deliverables. But of course, even though this is cost effective, it's not reliable in the long run because freelancers are typically doing a lot of other projects at the same time. You don't know when they're going to prioritize your project or not. Or with some other US company who's looking to engage freelancers, they may just come inside here, offer a higher price, and then you may be disengaged from freelancers. Yeah. So it is still viable at the angel and seed stage when the project is small. But at a certain point of time, when your project gets bigger and you need more manpower to staff and grow your tech development, then you gotta figure out whether you need more control over your tech resources. And that's when a lot of companies find that, okay, because they need the control, let's try and set up a team themselves in Vietnam. It is more expensive than outsourcing in the short term because you need to go and face all the issues that you don't really face when you go to outsourcing and freelancing. And those are recruitment, HR, payroll, setting up office, all these kind of administrating things. And it can be quite a challenge at the early stage itself. But long-term wise, because you have an ownership of the team itself, it becomes more long-term cost effective. You pay salaries direct. There's no markup further by the middleman charges of an outsourcing firm, etc. Yeah. So there's better ownership definitely. So because they all report to you 100%, all their time is to you, right? You manage what they do and etc. So, but there's definitely a higher ramp up time to happen because it goes through the recruitment process. You must hire from the market, bring into your team, train them up to our tech stack, and then handhold with them for the long run. So it's also costly in that sense, in the short term of building that up. Companies that I see that Series B and Series C stage, they have their own HR team, they have their own expansion team in Singapore itself. So when they expand into different countries, and most of the time they expand into different countries at the same time. So that's when they are more capable. They have their own team of HR. They know the policy. They're able to localize to that. So basically, they will just incorporate their own entity in the country, build the team by themselves, and set up and run operations, not just marketing, but even sales operations into Vietnam, such as what we see as as some of the bigger companies. Right. I jumped into the team structure as well. Focus more towards startups at the early stage, between C to D stage. It's a lot of my clients ask me about, okay, how should they go into the market, and depending on, and that answer is really depending on what kind of team size they are interested to set up. If you're trying to set up hiring 1 or 3 person like a front end and back end developer, it doesn't really matter how you go inside here. You can choose freelance, or you even choose outsource, so that you don't have any of the administration and the scale up time to do that. And also the first hire can be anybody out of these 3 people. You hire really based on your needs, or in your deliverables. Right. If you are hiring a bigger team, let's say you're trying to get a 3 to 5 man team over the next 1 year, it makes sense for you to think about team structure and hire the most important person, which is the team lead at the start, because it's a lot about culture, setting about culture in the offshore team. And they always listen to there's a respect for seniority in Vietnam. So the senior backend engineer will sort of be like a team lead over there, and most of the people will follow his guidance to grow the team. So if you're 3 to 5 person, yeah, most of the time what we see is that the client will hire a senior backend engineer first, because backend is more core to the system. Then from there on, they hire the front end, backend around him to build the team up. If you're looking for a 5 to 10 man team, you gotta look up for more project management resources, more team manager over there. So you have somebody have more senior 8+ of experience to lead a team with senior front end, back end to do that. So this is what we normally see in the market. Then from there on, they may even split into different development modules. Maybe it's the customer module, maybe it's the big data module, etc. Whereas if you're going for 10 to 15 man packs, this is what we normally see for Series B companies. You need a very strong VP of engineering who can command and control the different project teams that you have in Vietnam, in the overseas team. And it really depends on your requirements, the CTO's requirement of what kind of team they want to build over there. Because 50 packs per team, it can be like 5 departments of 10 person each running different things. Right. So budgeting itself for a lot of early stage startups, there's lack of understanding of what is required to build a team. A lot of time they think that the salary they pay the employee is the salary, is the total cost of ownership of the candidate itself. But frankly speaking, there's a lot of other things to consider. Let's say when you're going to the Vietnam market itself, when you want to negotiate somebody for salary, if he say he wants 1,000 take home pay, what does that mean? It means that 1,000 is what he takes home, and then there's a lot of other things you need to pay for that. So there's an income tax that has to be paid for that. There's a social insurance contribution, which is like the CPF in Singapore. There's an employee side contribution, which is 10.5%. There's an employer side contribution, which is 23.5%. Then you also need to think about the auxiliary charges, like laptop charges, space charges, administration fee, if you have a finance admin office manager in Vietnam to take care of all the team. Then also some things like welfare benefits, like company trips, food stay, festival celebration, and giving ang pao during the Tet, which is the Lunar New Year in Vietnam, etc. Then also you need to consider about the bonuses. So all in all, when we work with the HR, the 1,000 take home pay is basically about 1,008 if you're talking about the total cost of ownership of a team over in the offshore team. Yeah. So the gross salary, this is what we see in the market as gross salaries if you are looking for developers. We are a bit focused on developers now. So this is what we see as a range in the market. ITV is a very good job board to hire tech people. It's the biggest tech job board in Vietnam, other than Vietnam Works, which is not really a tech job board, but all the other hiring. Right? So the costs are going up in the different areas. If anybody's interested, you can email Jazzery, then I can send this over to you in detail. Please don't squint your eyes over at numbers now. It's not good for your health. Right. So as a budgeting basis, so the question is, how much savings are there if you are going to Vietnam versus Singapore side? We did a run through an apple to apple comparison as much as possible. We find that the salaries is about 50% of Singapore price. And if you take it all about the total cost of ownership, it's still about 47% of Singapore price. Assuming Singapore is 100%. So if you hire a work pass in Singapore, that's cheaper, that's about 86% because you don't pay a lot of the CPF. But if you hire in Vietnam, all the other costs are, I would say that because of the basic salary is lower, so all the other things are lower as well. And you will realize that the social insurance in Vietnam is 23.5%, higher than Singapore's 17% by 6.5%, right? But there's some advantages towards that. It is that the leave system is a bit different, the sick leave system. So in Vietnam, if the employees fall sick, they go to the hospital, they get the medical certificate from the hospital, they can actually claim money from the government in lieu of pay. So when you are hiring in Vietnam, you don't have to pay. But then the hospital is considered as unpaid leave to Singapore companies. That's versus Singapore side, whereby you still must pay them when they are on medical leave and hospital leave. Right. So which is why I say that we put a negative over here, simply because your responsibility towards the candidate is much less. Yeah, so just some extra words basically is that, yeah, Vietnam is about 50% of Singapore price. We find that salaries have increased over the years due to global demand for tech talents. We also have some clients from Indonesia coming over, so I was really surprised. Why do you have clients from Indonesia coming over? Because the grab for talent is really strong throughout in Southeast Asia as well. Even though salary has gone up, I would say that the skill set over the past 4 years has also gone up. We have more experienced candidates now, they're able to speak better. So we see that the training comes together with the salary increase. Okay, some success factors to consider when you go into Vietnam itself. Communications. Whenever you go into any country with offshore team, communication is always compromised simply because you're not in the same room, right? So time zone differences, that you have very little in-person meeting, there's no coffee room chat, there's no lunchtime break chat kind of thing going on. So we need to compensate that as much as possible with the better communication channels and more defined communication. So that's when you get all your Slack, Trello, WhatsApp, Viber, Telegram, blah, 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 all in Skype, Zoom, Jira as well. But I guess most of you will be quite familiar with that because COVID is sort of like making all of us working remote as well, right? So, which is why, yeah, if you get more familiar with this, that actually lowers the barrier of entry if you are definitely considering offshore team. So, and again, Singaporean, we speak Singlish. We have a different accent from what the local Vietnamese are used to in terms of English. They listen to more American English. So because of that, when our English may not totally sync with them, so it is best to minimize communication, cover your points after meetings with email, right? If everything written down, it's better than conversation. Because a lot of time they will if you don't understand, they'll just But do they really understand or not? So that's the question. Just prevent any miscommunication by following up with emails. Okay, sharing information is very important because especially we experienced this during the COVID period. There's a lot of companies retrenching, right? So they are and that is not good if you do not communicate your company situation. Gossips tend to form simply because they are far away. They don't know. What they don't know leaves a lot of imagination. So we have been getting a lot of this kind of questioning or rather gossiping, asking more information. Hey, how is the Singapore side going on? Are they doing well? Are they out of money, etc. So these kind of things can really affect the morale. So having better communication, being open about communication is important, so that they will feel that they are part of the team. Lower the gossips and the guessing, right? And that will also increase your intention rate in the long run. Engagement, yes. Don't treat them like all companies. Treat them like treat them as a part of a team and engage them directly, so that they feel that they are together. It's not just an outsourcing relationship. And having a clear ops chart of knowing who will do what and how to communicate, who should we raise issues to, that's important. If they don't know the channels of communication, they may just simply not communicate, which is not good in the long run. So the culture-wise, there's a strong leader culture over there. The respect for seniority is a double-edged sword. If you have a very good leader, so your team will run very well together with the person. If you don't have a very strong leader, then that becomes an issue, whereby there may be better people under the strong leader, but he may not be vocal about things. He may just follow what the weaker leader is just saying. Right. So a lot of time when we help our clients build teams, they look for a strong the TPM, technical project manager, or head of engineering before they back in the rest of the team. right? Yes, remote teams are not outsourcing vendors. Don't chase them on deliverables and tell them, hey, this is the time and scope you need to deliver this, because this will compromise quality a lot. Yeah, localization is important as well. So you can have a global HR plan, they can follow Singapore plan, but make sure you are be flexible for local adaptations. For example, some companies in Singapore, they only offer 12 months, they don't offer 13-month bonus. But 13-month bonus is actually something that is widely practiced in Vietnam. One of our clients refused to do that. They believe in the 12-month policy, and there are good reasons behind that. But facing this kind of a localization, they had a 30% 30% of their people left the company at the end of the year. So after that, then they basically listen to us to try and put in different measures to make their team more cohesive and to reduce the resignation rate. Performance review is good because you need to plan for their growth. You need to tell them how they are performing so that we can increase and feedback to. Okay. So other things that we need to watch out for is basically more of the culture side. There's work culture and there's leisure culture. So having there's a very communal spirit in Vietnam. So doing things together is important. And that takes time to build as well. Going over there to talk to them. Face is important. Don't directly criticize them. You can talk to them behind the scenes, etc. Respecting elders is important. Be flexible with them, and they'll be flexible with you. Break time is a nap time for them. So, and they like to take away in the office and in the office because it's very hot outside there, and they don't want to travel on their bikes outside. Right. So most of my teams in Vietnam, they all lunch in one. So working hours, try not to do OT. They don't like to do OT. If you do OT, please try to make it approved OT with approved benefits, approved extra OT pay for that. Right. If you like I think if you are a communal person, you will like the community spirit in Vietnam. They do everything together: soccer, karaoke, barbecue dinners. Yeah, they love soccer. So if you love soccer, go with them. But if sometimes when they win tournaments, right, there will be like a lot of traffic jams. Yeah, beer is cheap. Consumption of beer is very strong in Vietnam compared to Singapore. We are far weaker drinkers as a nation compared to them. Một hai ba yo is something that you need to know when you go there. Một hai ba is 1, 2, 3. Yo is drink. So having beer culture out there in the open is good. Coffee culture, if you do culture, there's good coffee over there, and bubble tea as well. My team is wholly addicted to bubble tea in Vietnam. Okay, this is my last slide. Basically, I find that other than for the past 4 years, we've been going to Vietnam, helping to set up teams. But during these past 4 years, we see the Vietnam market growing significantly as well. There's many different traditional industries and new industries that makes it a very viable market to not just build a team over there, but also the access market, as what Arisa has said previously, right? So population is big, consumer market population is strong. E-commerce, fintech, which has been explained by Arisa just now already. So we are seeing a lot of investors going there as well. All the ASEAN-based, all the Singapore-based investors who invest in ASEAN, they are setting up their offices in Vietnam. So it would be interesting. The investors always go to the growing market. So if you go there, I mean, there will be a lot of synergy as well. Last thing I want to just say is that get used to motorbikes when you are there. Traveling is always by motorbike. It's the fastest way of doing things, right? If you get in a taxi, you probably get stuck there for a long time in the rush hour traffic. Yep, I think that's all I have to share on my side. I will go to the appendix now.
Yep, thank you, Frank, for your sharing. Yep, so next up, right, we have Mr. Subesh Rahavendra, Vice President and Country Manager Singapore at NASDAQ. Subesh's primary responsibility is to lead a high-performing sales and solutions team to grow the Asian business for NASDAQ. He has worked in business development, consulting, and advisory domains in the Asia-Pacific region for majority of his career and has deep understanding of consulting and technology combined with sound knowledge of the regional market. He has consulted at large global and multinational enterprises with a focus on IT strategy, sourcing, procurement transformation, and cost-optimized engagement. Let's welcome Subesh, where he will be sharing his learnings and experience from an IT practitioner perspective in Vietnam. Subesh, over to you.
Thank you, Jess.
Yeah.
Can you see my screen?
Yes.
Okay, wonderful. Thank you, Jez, again for giving us the opportunity to share our learnings, essentially from a practitioner perspective. So I think after having heard the earlier two speakers, I think the audiences would be fairly well versed with Vietnam because we've gone through this Vietnam 101 course. Now, I'll tend to keep my slides rather simple because all I'm going to share with the team and the audiences today is essentially how we have navigated as a company in Vietnam, as we have been working in Vietnam for the last 21 years, and we are the largest foreign invested company in Vietnam. So a very brief overview. We are part of a larger group called Harvey Nash. It was established in 1998. From a revenue perspective, we are £1 billion turnover and over. We are very well represented across the globe. So these are the three brands, the business units that we have. Obviously, Harvey Nash is the executive search firm. Nashtec is the brand under Harvey Nash, which focuses exclusively on software development, digital transformation, and business process outsourcing. So some of the awards and accolades that we have won as a business, we have been rated as the best IT company to work for. In fact, we have we have beat some of the other competition like Microsoft and Google in this space for the best companies to work for. If you're trying to go into Vietnam, I think this award is very sort of precious because the Sakwe Award. Now, this award is given by the local government, which recognizes the companies both from a revenue perspective and also what they have given back to the community at large. So I think we have been winning this award consistently, since 2009, and that's something which we really cherish this award a lot. In terms of the cost that we are trying to bring about efficiency and cost reduction. So this comparison is more from companies that are trying to come in from Europe and trying to set up their offshore business services in Vietnam. From their estimations and from the numbers that we have worked with them, there's clearly 20 to 50% reduction in terms of costs that they enjoy if they are offshoring work back to Vietnam. And obviously, Vietnam is very populous. There are about 94 million, and English is predominantly widely spoken now. So I think you will have a good communication, with at least with the people who are working and the software engineers out there. In terms of brand, we enjoy a very strong brand recognition. And in fact, if you talk about the Microsoft most valued professionals, 3 out of 5 MVPs in Vietnam work for Nashtec. So in Vietnam, there are only about 5 MVPs, and 3 of them work for Nashtec. Yeah. So again, why Vietnam? Obviously, I won't dwell much on it because I think Orissa has already given. But just to capture, with about 95 million population, internet penetration is extremely strong. We are present in both Hanoi as well as Ho Chi Minh City. We have close to about 2,000 people in Vietnam. Majority of them, about 1,200 to 1,300 of them would come from Ho Chi Minh City, and the remainder of them would come from Hanoi. All right, so I'll quickly jump into what are the key success parameters that we as a company think are essential for companies coming to set up their business in Vietnam. And also when we have discussed and worked with companies who have been working with us for the last 10 years, 15 years, and from the discussion that we have had with them, these are some of the points, parameters that they feel are essential for success. Now, the first thing I would like to bring out is the trust factor, right? So we need to clearly understand that from a Vietnam perspective, they hold the IP and intellectual property very seriously, right? So you need to also ensure that if you're a software vendor company going into Vietnam, you need to ensure that your IPs are going to be very well secured. What sort of data protection and data, parameters, protocols that they have? Like for example, in Singapore, we talk about PDPA, right? Now in Europe, they talk about GDPR. So you need to know whether the companies are compliant to that, and how is your IP going to be secured. We also need to look at whether there's a good cultural fit. And if you look at Vietnam as a market, as a country, in terms of the culture, it's very similar to most of the Southeast Asian companies, right? And they are very well easygoing with American companies also. So I think they are in a nutshell, I think their cultures are very flexible. And from a flexibility perspective, you also need to ensure that the company that you're working with is able to meet your demands, your needs on a very quick basis. So thereby, agility comes very handy out there. And to make things work, obviously you need to have a strong management will as well. And this has to come very strong from the company trying to venture into Vietnam, because this is going to be a long journey. And unless you have a strong management buy-in, the first issue that you face, things will really go, haywire. So you need to have a strong management will to ensure that you put the necessary, checks and balances in place to overcome those. And obviously you need to have a regular communication and follow up with the teams that you're trying to work with. Now, I would then like to move on to the strategy. What is the long-term strategy that the companies are trying to have, right? Now, as we all know that creating successful partnership, it takes time. Now, whether the company that you're trying to work with is the right company from a delivery perspective, have they demonstrated long-term relationship with some of their clients? So you can ask them, what sort of clients do you work with? And if you're really keen, then you can even do a reference check with those customers of theirs as well. And from those discussions, you will know what has been the journey, the path that the vendor has taken along with this company, and how they've grown over the years, right? Now, you also need to ensure that from a engagement model perspective, whether both companies are talking the same language, right? So if your company, the company trying to go into Vietnam, they have been used to a certain set of engagement models, you need to ensure that the company in Vietnam is also able to work with those models as well. And you need to discuss and agree on what's the model that you're going to be agreeing going forward, right? From a product roadmap perspective, you need to have a strong clarity in terms of why you're going there, right? Now, this will, I think, come very handy for both software vendor companies trying to go into Vietnam, and also large enterprises who are going to Vietnam to set up their offshore delivery centers. So having a clear strategy really helps, and it paves for a stronger relationship at both parties. Now, you also need to speak with the vendor and understand whether the vendor has the relevant experience and references, right, to back whatever they're trying to say. So, for example, if this company is into the transportation vertical, then you need to see what case studies or what references does this company have that they can bring the best practices across to you, and whether it makes sense to work with this company for the long term. And of course, it definitely helps to have experience from a vendor perspective who understands the international market, who has worked with those markets, and is able to deliver value to those companies coming. And also important would be the high quality outcomes, right? Now, we need to ensure that the company that we're working with, they have certain basic processes in place. Like, for example, CMM, the maturity model, what we call the CMM level, how strong they are in that. Now, obviously, today we're talking about CMM level 5 and go and so on. So you need to ensure that from a standards perspective, they are on par and they follow the best practices like the ISOs as well. You also need to ensure that the quality of the output from an engineering team is very strong, right? Now, also talent and how the team goes ahead and builds the talent, attracts them, retains them, and takes them for the long term. Because as you know, Vietnam is a market where a lot of relationship works, and having a strong team will only help bring about efficiencies for the company that is trying to work with Vietnam, right? Also, you need to ensure that from a company's perspective, whether the data is secured, what network securities and protocols they have in place. and also whether they have the strong credentials to attract the local talent, because at the end of the day, software development is all about talent, right? So if you don't have the right talent, if you don't have the right set of team to build up that roadmap, that journey, you are not going to achieve your end objective. So essentially, have a clear product roadmap, build an element of trust with your partner, right, who's able to deliver high quality outcomes, and obviously have a long-term strategy. This is not for a short haul. You're trying to work with a partner who will have an equal skin in the game, and who's there for you, through thick and through difficult times and happy times. Yeah, so this is my contact details if anyone would like to reach out to me. Otherwise, that would be it.
Yep. Thank you, Subesh, for your sharing. So right now, right, we would like to open for Q&A. So if you have any questions, right, you may use the Zoom Q&A function to submit your questions and we will answer to them. So I'd like to invite all the speakers back onto and on their video. Yeah. So I think we already seeing some of the questions coming in. Let me take a look. Okay, we have one question from Stephanie. So what are the common problems companies face when entering Vietnam? How to resolve them? So perhaps Tao from Orisa would like to answer.
Thank you for the question. So I'll just mention the difficulty the companies may have when they start to work with their partners in Vietnam, when they start to enter the market. So first of all, what I witnessed, and I think I've mentioned in my presentation, is that the language that you use to sell your products may not be appropriate for the market, because maybe your product is not really ready for the market yet, or is not really appropriate for the market yet. So you need to check on that, and then be really patient talking with your potential clients what they need, and then alter the way that you talk about your products, or alter the way that you sell your products. For example, I have a client who sell like a platform subscription. So the idea is that people can use the platform to build a software on their own without tech knowledge. But the thing is that the Vietnamese people don't even know what kind of product they should focus on. They know how to work, but they don't know where to go. So in the end, the company itself have to develop a product on their own and then sell that product completely to their clients, and it would be easier to accept. Secondly is the language issue. So I think two of us speakers also mentioned that English is being spoken widely in Vietnam right now. At least many people can speak some kind of English for simple conversation, but blasting them with emails, a lot of information and well-structured right at the front before you start working with them only make them hesitate to continue the conversation. So trying to be friends with them first, and via friendly conversation. And when it comes to business, so to avoid the miscommunication, but you still want to talk with them and make them more comfortable, get yourself an interpreters. And that helps a lot during the conversations with the local partners in Vietnam.
Okay, thanks, Tao. Frank, you have any comments on this, since you also help a lot of companies on, the outsourcing part? So you probably hear a lot of feedback or, Frank, you are muted.
Yes, sorry.
Yeah.
There is definitely a lot of issues about the market over there. As Tao has mentioned, communication is always one of the biggest issues. The way we communicate is more straightforward. Whereas over in Vietnam, you need to warm up over time, which is different but good as well, because it sets up a longer relationship building. Then again, I would tell everybody who's interested in Vietnam, just go Vietnam and take a look, because everything over there is so different. The traffic is different. So all these kind of things may affect how your business is going to be selling over there. So if the traffic is different, the payment mode is different, and the local culture is different, the food is different, the travel, so all these kind of things are very different when you enter the market. So a lot of time, the common problem is that they get a culture shock when they go into Vietnam. And also when you talk about business itself, talking to people, yes, I would think engaging companies like Organizatio is very important, because they understand how to reach on both sides already. So having that kind of expert guidance to go to the market is definitely very useful to do that. some common problems is also pricing. So I mean, I have a lot of companies go to Vietnam to hire, and that's because it's about 1/3 to half the cost of Singapore. So if you are going to be selling to the market, you think they're going to be able to pay the Singapore rates for your products? Highly likely, basically, you need to have a different pricing strategy to suit the local market itself. Yeah. So yeah, be prepared for all these kind of things to happen.
Okay. Yeah. Subhash, you have anything to add on this, since you are very familiar with the market?
Yeah, I think there are, I mean, regardless of which market you go into, there will obviously be, roadblocks and all that. So obviously you need to first make your assessment very clear why you're going to Vietnam, what is your objective that you want to achieve, and, do your due diligence well, and work with a partner who has a long credential of meeting your demands and your needs. And work through them. So as rightly the earlier speakers have said, it's a journey, right? It's a long journey. So you have to be invested with the team for a while before you can really start talking business. Yeah.
Okay, thank you, Subhash. Okay, we
I would
have,
like to add one more thing. Sorry,
sure,
Shirley.
no problem.
So
Frank.
I mean,
Go
the
ahead.
Singapore government, I think we have a very good supportive government because of all the grants and stuff, right? So when you talk about market expansion, there is always a grant for different things, right? Market research, figuring out market business development. So yeah, I think it's best to tap on all that, and I think SG Tech is able to point you in the right directions as well about where
Yep.
to do that. Yeah.
Yeah, okay. So since now you talk about grant, yeah, we have another questions that come in, right? So so Tao mentioned earlier, ESG has some government support schemes. So what are they, and how much of the MIP do they cover? How?
Okay,
I think
so,
it's probably the MIP program that you mentioned about. I think
yeah.
one of
So,
our audience have some questions. Yeah.
Yep. So the market immersion programs is we are piloting this project with ESG, and they provide grants for it under EDG. So how does it work? Before you register a license or rent an office, you need to understand the market. But working with the local distributor is not as easy if you are in another country. So this program is a way that help the foreign clients to talk with the Vietnamese clients and distributor directly and more often, because you have local staff here you may come here and then come back, but you have a staff here to go to the local distributor to keep the relationship, to maintain the relationship and talk to them. And maybe because that person is on your side and not a distributor, so they will work towards your companies better, because that's technically your persons. And you don't have to address the issues of registering with the government because that person is under the umbrella of Orisa, because we take care of all of the administration procedure with the government for them. So that only need to focus on the development of sales and business and making a relationship. There's nothing else to worry. So after a year, because that program is for a year, and after a year, you see your sales, the market is really good. You already have sales, then that's when you are ready to open an office here, because you are confident that your product has a market. But if your product is not really ready for the market, you can withdraw out of Vietnam without like such a big cost. I think for the cost and the structure of the program, I think because we have an office in Singapore, and my colleague Angeline will be able to walk you through the program and how to apply with ESG.
Yep, thank you. So let's go to the next question. This is from Kason. So I think he is referring to the presentation Tao also you have mentioned earlier. So what is the difference selling to Vietnam customer, as you mentioned? I mean, most customers are using software or moving into SaaS solutions. Are most enterprise software in English or Vietnamese language?
Okay, so for this case, I will answer one question one by one. So first of all, what is the difference selling to Vietnam? So first of all, the price is already different. You cannot selling the same price for Singapore and for Vietnam. If you sell the same price, you have to prove that it was that. Because sometimes the Vietnamese government, the Vietnamese people, as I say, they are new to technology. They don't know which is good. So they may afford to buy something higher, but it's backed by famous companies rather than buying from a cheaper service providers, but the name isn't so popular for them, and they are not really guaranteed with the service. You need to address the pricing and then how to communicate it with them. What kind of what is being sold more, software or software as a service? I think I already mentioned earlier as well. So software is being deployed the most at the moment, but software as a service is being sold as the fastest growth rate out of all. Software as a service is small, but they are growing. They're growing fast. So it's a future trend. And you may expect that it will outgrow other software, traditional software in maybe next few years, 2 or 3 or 5. It depends on how much of the globalizations in Vietnam. And I think what is the last one?
The last one is about their enterprise software in English or Vietnamese language.
There's a lot of software still in English, but actually prefer to have a Vietnamese versions. I still hear a lot of partners in Vietnam as well as the end user. They ask, do you have a version in Vietnamese? Because maybe the top management, they can speak really good English, but not everyone in the company can speak English, and it would be better if you want to implement in like a whole system for the companies, and it's better to have a Vietnamese version rather than English.
Okay, yeah, thank you. So we have the next question for Frank. Can you give us some tips on how to manage offshore teams in Vietnam?
How to manage offshore teams in Vietnam? That's a very big topic by itself. Areas. Definitely. Starting off with the culture, you need to know them as the people. Embrace their culture. Don't always say, "Oh, in Singapore we do it like this," because when you've been to Vietnam, Vietnam is not Singapore, right? So being able to adapt to local culture. So when I went into Vietnam itself, I need to find a few of those trusted parties. Oh, they love management, or rather they love the Singapore management team to go over there to mingle with them, not just for work, but outside work itself. And that's where you can build the stronger bonds. With the stronger bonds, then they'll be able to work with you better during the work time itself. So whenever I go there, I'll definitely have like one day of a Friday night dinner, beer with everybody and everybody. That really helps a lot to set things up. Going over to see their family. So on weekend, I do all go over to my HR managers or place, or we all go and have a barbecue over there. So that kind of the setting, it makes things much more open. So, and that's also part of trust building, and also saying that you place emphasis on the Vietnam team, right? It's not just an outsourcing team, because outsourcing is very common. Basically, project is thrown over there, whether they face the customer or not, that's really on a contractual basis, right? But if you are building your own team itself, it's really more than that. You need to tell them that, hey, they really belong to you, and you are with them to thick and thin, right? So yes, I'll just say a lot more on the communications, culture communications with them.
Okay, thank you. So we have another question from Wen Long. He's asking, how ready are the local financial institutions in adopting new technologies such as AI? So perhaps how you can also answer, and maybe Subesh, you might have some insights to that, since NASDAQ is such a big company, foreign investor company in Vietnam. Yeah.
Sorry, I didn't get that question. Can you just repeat it again? Yes.
How ready are the local financial institutions, right, adopting new technologies such as AI?
Okay, so I think from our perspective, about 95% of the revenue comes from overseas markets, right? So we don't really focus much of selling into Vietnam per se, but what we hear from companies that we have, or rather companies who have partnered with us to take them into Vietnam and sell into Vietnam, what we see by and large is there's a very strong affinity for the public sector companies in Vietnam, as well as large enterprises, to emulate some of the best practices that's been followed here in Singapore, Japan, and the South Korean markets, right? So they definitely do look up to these markets. But in terms of how mature they are, I think I would still not put them on the same benchmark as our markets. But definitely there is an inclination for them to move forward. So I think from that perspective, new breed of technologies will be a good conversation, But in terms of adoptability and putting it into a project per se, I still see a few years ahead of for them to reach that thing for that curve. Yeah.
Maybe I can also answer that
Yeah,
question.
sure.
I think so. Yes, I think what we see in the enterprises in Vietnam, they are financial institutions. They are open to find out more, as Subesh mentioned. Yes, find out more. But then whether they will they pull the trigger to invest and spend time and money on it, that is the question now that we are seeing. So what we see now is that the market is still at the changing phase of moving their servers from on-prem into the cloud.
Mm-hmm.
So seeing a lot of cloud migration. So if you see the maturity of technology growth, right, that needs to happen first. And that's a very core to the system itself. So they need to get such core things done first before there'll be more focus on AI. But if you are specifically talking about AI for fintech, so we have a lot of fintech companies as well in Vietnam. And so they go into partnerships with the financial institutions to sell their solutions. I wouldn't say sell, but maybe like a JV kind of thing. So they'll provide the tech for lower cost and do a revenue share behind that. So that's for like credit scoring for the financial sector, for lending technologies, etc. So we do see that out there, and they're more open instead of just a pure straight cash for that, which is a bit harder.
Okay, anything to add, Tao, on your side?
Okay, so I think from my side, well, I can tell you from an examples. 2 years ago, I helped a data analysis company from the US to Vietnam to talk with the commercial banks. None of them know about how to work with data analysis. And the guy said that he's a data scientist for over 20 years in the US. So this is the lag that you see the lag, how big is the gap between the advanced market and the Vietnamese market. There's a really big gap, and there's a lot of technologies that Vietnamese AI is, as I say, it's a nice to have technology more than a core technology. So many people, they are open to have the conversation about how it works, but they're not ready to adopt it. There's like an advice behind. After that, what should we do? Actually, we always advise them to try to work with the system integrator in Vietnam, like the FPT, FIS, or similar companies, because actually, when they talk with they are local companies. It's not even, you don't need to even form a JV, but you are bringing your products to that company, ask them to sell your products, and they know how to talk because they will know the local language, how to talk with the companies in Vietnam so that they can adopt. And also another thing important that I need to mention is that with the new technology, Vietnam only follow the big names. Like for example, ERP, they really want to use the SAP and Oracle, although they know it's very expensive. So if your technology is new, your name is new, it's better to say that your products, your service can work very well with what they already have, and they'll be more accepting to your offer, rather than you said that this is the product that can replace what you already have.
Okay, yeah, thank you. I think there are another questions that Kason want to add on earlier in terms of I think we talked about the solutions with different language, because like most of you mentioned, right, there's a lot of Korean and Japanese companies also in Vietnam. So to Singapore companies who are looking into going there, have to also have their, solutions to translate into Korean or Japanese language as well. To have different languages. Any comments on that? Yeah.
I think even on Orisa website now, because we work with Japanese clients, so our website has a different version for Japanese clients. It's in Japanese. It means like Japanese and Japanese, even Chinese and Korean, they prefer to speak in their own language. But you are talking about companies in Vietnam. So the number of those people who use the languages, use the software in Vietnam, most of them are Vietnamese, not Korean or Chinese. So first of all, Vietnamese is still very important. Other languages is nice to have, but it's not applied for the whole companies, because many of the staff is still Vietnamese anyway.
Okay. Yeah, Frank?
Maybe I can add a bit more over here. So we also have a local system. We use MISA as our back end for all the HR and finance things, right? It's in Vietnamese. There are some English, which is the language is not so good. But I still use it because my whole team in Vietnam is Vietnamese, and as long as they're happy with it, they are I'm okay. So you put it into your context of a question. So if a Korean goes into Vietnam and they run a business over there, if the software is for the Vietnam market, I don't think you need that to be in Korean or Japanese. But we extend it further out. If you are trying to sell to the HQ of the Korean company, and that will be in Korea itself, then you need to have the Korean language itself. But that's a different ballgame altogether. It means you are not really going to the Vietnam market, but proxy into the Korean market or Japan market itself. That said, a lot of MNCs in Vietnam, they are not the regional HQ. They are more of like a country HQ or country level heads, right? So they don't make decisions about the software to use. So a lot of the MNCs, they still come to Singapore before they go into the region, Malaysia, Thailand, India, Malaysia, Thailand, Indonesia as well, right? So Vietnam, a lot of time, because I was from MNC before, so all the software, they listen from Singapore side, and Singapore listen to wherever the HQ comes from, overseas itself, direction. So all those implementation of SAP, they always need to go to HQ one. You cannot sell directly to the Vietnamese company straight away, right? That's for MNC enterprise software.
I'd also like to add just one point here. So we need to be very clear in terms of what a strategy is. Why are we going to Vietnam? Are we going to Vietnam to sell into the 95 million population, right, that it has to offer? Or you're going to Vietnam to use Vietnam as a base for you to then, leapfrog into other markets, use Vietnam as a software development, as companies do, and sell to overseas markets. So we need to exactly know what the strategy is and why we're going to Vietnam in the first place. And if we are clear about that, I think the rest of it is just a matter of putting things to practice.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you, Subesh. Yeah, there's this question from Asaf. I think we also probably cover in some of the other question, because he mentioned something. If you are consulting for public sector reform for the government, you need a local team to address the language and cultural barrier. I think the answer will be probably yes. Early on, we mentioned a lot of things on language as well as culture, right? So I believe the speakers here will agree, right? How?
Definitely.
Yeah.
I think, you need to have a strong local partner. One is obviously we need to understand whom we are selling to. It's a government officials, right? So for them to be comfortable, they need to be working or talking or conversing with a local partner who understand the nuances of the local market and who's able to manage all the expectations locally. I think that's very important, to go and work through a local partner if you're addressing a public sector entity here.
Okay, that's great. I think, yeah, we have covered most of the question, and I think we are coming to an end of the session soon. So right now, I would just like to actually once again, thanks to all our speakers, right, from Orisa International, Tech GDI, NashTech, right, for sharing the insightful knowledge of Vietnam itself, and also for our attendees for all the questions. So we hope the session has been useful for all of you, and we have gained valuable takeaways from this session. So before we end, we just like to share some of our upcoming activities that we have. So we have our 5th edition of our Entering China series next week, that's talking on M&A. And on the 8th of September, we are also co-organizing this with the Israeli Trade Mission, a networking webinar, where we'll cover an overview of the blockchain landscape in Israel. And you will also get to hear and network with a group of Israeli blockchain companies where you can explore for potential partnerships, right? So you can scan the QR code or go to our website to register for these activities. We will also like the audience to help us complete this short webinar survey so that we can create relevant content and improve our future sessions. So in fact, SG Tech, we are rolling out in the coming months, right, a lot of other immersion program or market entry programs or business matching. So do complete the survey, give us your feedback, so we will be in touch with you when we roll out those programs. Yeah, you can scan the QR code or enter the link on the screen to access to the survey form. So once again, thank you everyone for attending today. So we hope to see you soon again in the next session, right? So thank you to all our speakers. Take care. Yeah, stay safe and have a great weekend ahead. It's Friday, TGIF.
Thanks, guys. Cheers.
Thank
Bye-bye.
you.
Thank you. Bye.